let's start off, just kind of go down the line. And why don't you tell us about, high level, your background, your current role and responsibilities. John?
Yeah, so I'm kind of new to the whole UC experience. I've only been in UC about a year or so. In fact, I'm new to being in management. For 30 plus years, I was on the technical side. I had an electrical engineering degree, which I have long ago forgotten. And so now what I've been doing is software development, and then I migrated into UC. So the team I have is responsible for the instant messaging presence, email encryption, and primary reason I'm here is that we are looking to deploy workstream collaboration in Boeing. So a very exciting time for us to look at those products. So I'm very excited to be here at the conference and hopefully learn a lot.
Okay, Stacy?
Sure, Stacy Foster. I work for an organization called Chemonics International. We do a lot of work for USAID, a lot of international development type of work. I'm a facilities and technology director, so I was very interested in the position because it combined those two aspects, the facilities side of the house and the technology side of the house. And I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, I'm Chris Abrams. I work for Yum Brands. Yum Brands owns Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and KFC. I'm currently the director of infrastructure within that. So that encompasses collaboration, desktop, data center, cloud, networking side of Yum globally.
So let's start with technology challenges. What are some of the top technology challenges that your organizations are facing? And then how does that change how you think about the skills that are required? Chris, you want to start with that one?
So, I think ours is a little bit unique. Our big challenge right now is how do we reach collaboration technologies globally and centralize and bring everybody to one type of system? Right now, we have a lot of different shadow IT organizations across the globe. Some using this tool, some using that tool. And our big thing is, how do we have everybody use one system, and how do we maintain security around that one system? Our approach, or my preference, is one system, but that seems to be very tough today with a lot of new great platforms coming out.
So does that mean that how do you think about the skills that you are, as a manager, that you require to? Yeah,
I think, the skills that are required from a technology standpoint is, of course, they're going to have more than just the UC and video and voice skills and the networking skills and how to write APIs and how to gain into the APIs. But what I'm really trying to gain from my team is how do you understand the customer better? We have very different business units globally, and what is the needs of each one of those business unit profiles that we need to meet? And then secondly, understanding the entire life cycle that goes anywhere from asset management to vendor management to understanding performance and metrics on what's going on so we can be ahead of the game. So I think instead of focusing directly on just being a voice engineer or being a video engineer or just being a developer, you really kind of need all those skills, but you also need to understand how to pull the business aspects of it. How is this going to increase the efficiency of the business? And I think thinking a little bit out of the IT realm and kind of bringing this business acumen is really what I'm encouraging my team to do.
Okay, what about you, Stacy?
A little bit of a similarity there. So we support over 76 different countries, and we have field office support. And what we found out is all of these different offices were using different tools and technologies to track processes, to do their timesheets, to collaborate. So what we decided, of course, is that moving forward, we'd like to have a more consistent tool to use, ideally, on the same system. I'm not here to plug any specific technologies, but I will say we're looking at Dynamics 365 as our ERP system to help us a little bit with that. And looking into different training platforms as well to make sure that all of our staff, no matter where they're located, have access to the same training tools and technologies. The feedback that we had come in from an employee survey was pretty interesting because we had a lot of feedback from our field office support. And they basically shared that they kind of felt like they were forgotten in what we were doing, and that we were showing more preference to like our headquarters locations. And they're like, hey, we're out here, we're boots on the ground. What are you doing to help us? You know, we don't want to hear about you guys, you know, anymore. What are you doing to help us? So we've adopted a field first, you know, type of mentality moving forward. They'll get Dynamics before our headquarters location will be rolled out officially. So we're trying to work with them more, be a little more inclusive. And I think what that requires on the staffing side is just being able to be flexible and adaptable and really a little more empathetical towards not only your customers, but your internal clients, you know, as well. What's in it for them? What tools do they need to accomplish their job? That's not always an inherent skill set, I guess, to kind of think that way. But I think the more flexible and adaptable you are, and you can think of the what's in it for them, that'll help you a little bit with those tools and technology when you're thinking about what to deploy.
Okay. What about you, John?
Yeah, well, adding on to what Chris said, you know, Boeing is the largest aerospace company in the world, and besides many of you flying here on Boeing airplanes, we also are a major defense contractor. So security is keenly important to us, and as we roll out new collaboration capabilities that are cloud-based, that's a real challenge for us to make sure that we're finding products that can support that. And right now, the market's a little bit immature in that area. And so that's what we're finding to be one big challenge. So, you know, bringing in people who have some kind of security background, dealing with that environment would be very helpful. Another area where I see it is as the enterprise adopts these technology, we need people who are out there who are advocates that can help people. Okay, when do you use email? When do you use collaboration? It's going to be a paradigm shift for people to start migrating to those technologies. So, you know, people that are really good people skills and able to market the product, I think will be beneficial.
Yeah. On top of that, one of the big things that we're facing now too is this whole GDPR thing in Europe. And you know, it's real easy. You know, where's the data store? But when the collaboration, you know, what piece of information do we need to keep, and how do we do that? So right now we're going through this process right now to figure out, you know, does this apply? Does it not apply in the collaboration space? Do we need to keep these conversations? Do we not need to keep these conversations? So we're going through that too. So that's another big challenge that we're facing.
So how do each of you, I mean, you each come from different sort of backgrounds. Mm-hmm. You said you're just getting into the EC manager role, for example. I mean, based on your backgrounds, how is that helping you manage the company, the IT strategies moving forward and the staffing moving forward? The types of skills you're looking for?
Yeah, so I come from a networking background. That's where I was for 20 years. And you know, it's interesting because when you move over to the other side, you see you have that huge dependency on that foundational service. And you know, it's easy to say when your service starts having problems, you want to blame the network, but that's not really a good approach to take. And so you have to treat your networking team as your partner in this. You know, we have a global services now, and you're fine as you run those internationally. You run into performance issues. We're experiencing some challenges there with our India team, for example. And so we have to find ways to make that work. So, you know, partnering with your network team, the security team, to ensure that you have that best possible customer experience is really key to us.
So, my background is mainly, prior to coming to this enterprise world, was in the service provider world. And so we're doing a transformation at Yum for our IT. We're going from, hey, Yum's telling you what to do, to being more of a service provider, improving value to what we're delivering to the business. So from my background, coming from a service provider, you know, has really helped maintain that. And part of what he was saying about the networking team, we saw this disconnect between the networking and the security and the voice and the video and the collaboration team. So we brought them all together, all under my organization, to remove any of that red tape. You know, once again, the network really is the canvas. It's the foundation, because I'm a network guy too, is the foundation to everything going over that, right? If the network's not stable, it needs to work. But it has to be, the networking team has to understand, you know, what does it mean to do an RTP stream across there? What is the voice team looking for from MOS scores, and how does the network affect that? So I think that holds true with any application, voice and video. So I think having them come together and starting to learn with each other and cross-train within the teams really has shown improvement within our organization, and has really increased the performance of the collaboration systems themselves.
I want to get back to that, but Stacy, you have an unusual title,
I guess. Yeah. Yes, I'm not a network guy. No, so my background, I actually kind of started in AV. Like, I'd be the person running around with microphones, setting up the pipe and drape and the cameras and the projectors, out there. And from there, I moved into corporate technology. And then I kind of delved a little bit into the project management ITIL side of the house. Really enjoyed that a lot. I work very closely with our networking counterparts because I do recognize that having a solid infrastructure is going to get you where you need to go. So I absolutely look at our networking counterparts as being partners, true partners, hopefully within the same structure and organization there. But yeah, my background's a little different. I have project management, contract management, AV support, did IT operational support, a little bit of the engineering side of the house for a while, got in UC, and somehow ended up here. So all good times, though.
Chris, you mentioned cross-training. Can you elaborate a little bit more about how you're handling the cross-training? And then I'm curious if the two of you also have cross-training programs in place.
So we have a very structured methodology of cross-training where we have this, I don't want to go into details on it, but there's this whole sheet we track and colors of green, red, and blue, and who has what areas. And what we do is we spend, we have them define in very basic steps what you need to know to do this job. And then they spend an hour a week training that other person on the other team to cross-train those skills. And then we do check-ins every few months, and how's it going? And then we also put people in different teams. I'll just get somebody and move them over. Now, that makes my managers a little bit frustrated, but I think moving people over to different teams, because it is very similar. All these things are similar as far as how they work, and smart people are going to be able to figure it out. So I'll drop somebody in the networking team over in our UC team. I'll do somebody in the UC team over to our virtualization team. So just having that ability to move people around, people really enjoy it. And they'll stay there for a stint of a month or so, and they'll move back over to another one and help out the organization.
I was going to say thank you for doing that, because not a lot of people do that, but I'm really big on cross-training. A few areas I look at, audiovisual support and IT support, I think really go hand in hand, and there's a need to have a good networking baseline skill set, I think, there on both sides of the house. I think that eventually the IT tech and the AV tech will kind of come together and start to, I guess, meld, for lack of a better word, into the same role. So I think it's important for those two types of technical skills to really start to look at cross-training, coming together, working a little more. Also, if you have an organization where you have an operations side of the house and an engineering side of the house, I think it's very insightful to have the two of them switch here and there, so that the engineers aren't just recommending a solution and deploying it without understanding how it might impact the operational side of the house, the people who will be in the room or working the help desk getting yelled at if something doesn't work. And they really need to have a voice at the table when those engineers are looking at deploying a new solution. They should be involved in the test process, give feedback, involved in the training and everything. And vice versa, it's good for them to know what's involved on the engineering side of the house for use cases, use case development, understanding how something works, how something could go wrong, and then how to reach out and connect. I mentioned earlier I have the facilities team, as well, so quick plug for that. Not sure how many of you went to Robin's digital workplace presentation earlier. It was awesome, and what I loved about that is I think she had a few slides that really showed how the facilities industry is coming together a little more with IT. As an example, imagine walking into a hoteling space, and somehow that hoteling space knows who you are, whether or not it's through voice recognition or facial recognition or some type of biometrics. And it knows that, hey, Stacy's in the room. I need to level set her headset in a certain way. I need to adjust her chair a little bit. She likes to stand at her sit-stand desk. I'm going to raise her desk. I'll have this ready for her. I'll have the sound at a certain level. The lighting will be a certain way, and the AC will be set at 70.
Stacy, are you saying that hotel amenities will be all about facilitating work as opposed to pleasure? I mean, come on.
Wine. Will arrive at noon. It'll be great. No, but I think those two industries are coming a little more together. I mean, we have coffee machines now that have digital signage built into it. If you're lucky enough to be participating in a construction project or designing new rooms, it's nice to have a say in where the power and data goes and what type of table cubby you may get to have the cabling come in, and how the sound levels should be so they don't interfere with microphones in the room and stuff like that. So.
And I'm curious about your experience, because you went from networking to UC as well as from staff. I don't remember what your title was, but from staff to management, right?
Right. So Boeing, this is really timely because Boeing tradition is very tower, or I'll say vertical, where people will specialize in a particular technology, and it's not uncommon for people to be there in that particular area for 20 plus years, many 30 plus in fact. And so now as we get into these collaboration techniques and as we converge the technologies, it becomes more and more important for people to, instead of being vertical, to be horizontal. And so what we just recently set up was a program we call internally called GROW, and I wish I could remember the acronym, but what it is that the RO stands for rotational opportunity. And so what we allow managers to do is when they have a need in their organization, and like anybody else, we don't have unlimited resources, it allows them to post it on an internal website. And then what a person will see that, and if that's something that is of interest to them, they apply for it. And that rotation could be as short as a few weeks, and it could be up to a few months. But that really exposes them to some of the other areas, and as a result, it broadens their horizons, and they can then bring that back to their team when they're completed. And in some cases, when they complete that rotation, if opportunity arises in that organization, they're then able to go and join that organization. So it really gives them a great opportunity to see more of the company and to experience new things.
So that as well as the point you made, Chris, about you sort of plunking people, taking people out of one team and plunking them in the next. From a manager perspective, it seems to me you kind of have the desire to help your staff grow and mature in their career, but at the same time, that also potentially means that they're not going to be a part of your team any longer. So how do you balance that? I mean, how do you help them, mature, but then be brave enough not to fear losing them?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, as long as we're growing them and they can go to another team that's outside of my organization, it just helps our team, moving forward. So the parallel IT teams understand, they'll have people that understand what we're going through and the stress that we're going through. So I don't see that as a problem. I always enjoy people, being able to promote out of the system. I think that's great. So I don't really have an issue there from that perspective. And so, I'd always want to train people so they can leave. But then, I mean, somebody said this, I can't remember who said it, but train them so they can leave, but treat them so they want to stay. And so I think we do a pretty good job treating people with respect, and part of that is giving them that opportunity. And when we do that cross-training, it's also giving them permission to stop what they're currently doing. Don't stress out about that. I've got you covered from a leadership standpoint. Just really focus on this as you develop, because I think the more and more we become homogenous as far as an IT group, the better it is for us as an organization as we lean out. Okay.
Either of you have anything to add?
I would love to add to that, actually. So a few quick things. I am excited when someone has an opportunity, and it may be an opportunity outside of our team, and it could be something they're extremely passionate about. Maybe it's something that you can't offer as that person's manager or director, and it's just better for them and their career growth to move to a different part of the organization, or even in some cases outside of the organization to a different company. That is great. You have contacts. We've had people, move around, and it just expands your networking reach. And we've actually been able to get things done with other teams because we may have worked with that person in the past, and now you have a good contact, in that other organization to reach to. Hopefully they left on good terms, right? You want to try to not to burn the bridge there. But that just gives you an additional person to call, someone to reach out to. Same thing if they move on to another organization, that's someone that you now know at another organization, and you can compare notes and find out what they're working on, and maybe get together at conferences, like this. So I don't think it's, and I don't think you were saying it's a bad thing. I look at it as helping them maybe not necessarily leave, but advance.
Yeah.
How can they advance and be a little more passionate, maybe, and happy?
The only problem is they keep taking people from my team.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But Chris, you did say that you need to treat them so they want to stay. So what are you saying?
Stay within Yum.
Okay, stay within.
But they do want to stay in my team. But there's lots of opportunities for people outside. So.
Yeah, and it's a very competitive market out there. So, I tell my employees my job is to try to keep them and make their job as the best possible that it can be. But I also want them to see them grow. We have every employee has a development plan, of course, we review very frequently. And I like everybody to have like a 3-year plan. And if their 3-year plan is to still be in my organization, they probably need a better 3-year plan, because I feel like everybody should rotate more frequently to get that broader sense and to grow themselves.
Okay. Stacy, earlier you had mentioned sort of the soft skills that you're looking for, empathy being one of them. How do you, as managers, when you're hiring, how do you, look for those? And then as you're nurturing your employees, how do you make sure that you're instilling that in them?
We have a big focus on diversity and inclusion. So as managers, directors, if you're in a hiring type of role, I absolutely encourage you to find out if your organization has a diversity and inclusion contact who you can reach out to, connect in your hiring process, because I do believe that the more diverse your team is, you'll have a better work output, because you'll just have different ideas and skill sets and backgrounds and everything that you can bring, to those projects. And that may, I'm not just referring to, like a generation or something like that. I'm talking skill sets too, like a diverse range of skill sets. But one thing that I personally look for is a person's drive, which I think that you can sometimes get from that interview process if you're able to kind of talk with them in person a little bit. Or do they seem like they're a quick learner? Do they appear to be flexible and adaptable? What are some of the things that excites them? Are they willing to learn and try and do different things? The people skills. Can they have a conversation, with us and look us, make eye contact in the conference? Have they had customer service type of experience before? And do they have some sort of an IT baseline that they can draw from? So those are some of the quick hits, so to speak. Okay.
Chris, you talked about business acumen earlier. I would imagine that's particularly important as you go into more of maybe a cloud environment where you're handing off some of the IT responsibilities into the cloud. What do you look for in terms of business acumen?
Well, I think the first thing that I'm really stressing with the different verticals that are under my team is really understand what is your cost to the business. What is it down to the user? Like if we're going to go with this tool, what does this cost us for this tool? And then understanding that kind of business life cycle of when we need to refresh, or when we got to buy a capital purchase, or when we got to do this. And as we move to the cloud, I think really it is, you need to understand, what is appropriate to move out there, what's not appropriate to move out there. And so there's lots of reasons, whether it's regulations or whether it's just cost factors. Make sure that we're making the right business decision when we make changes. So in our organization, it doesn't have to go up to the CIO level in our organization. We can make decisions at the senior manager layer or the manager layer on what we need to do. So we empower people to do that. But when they come to me with an idea, I need to have them understand everything about why would we replace, for example, the F5 with the NetScaler. Look at the entire ecosystem of the business. How is it going to cost us? What efficiencies? What things can you take out of the system? What is it going to improve? So as far as the business acumen, you need to understand that piece of it, but then you also need to understand the user aspect. What is the user really asking for? Are we just doing this because it's sexy, or are we doing it because it's the right thing for the business? And so I really like those tables that move up and down a line. That's sexy, but to me, I would see that's a waste. But,
oh my gosh, I love standing. I stand half the day, but anyway.
I think you really got to take a very, we're a restaurant company. Anything that we add, if we add something, we have to sell 20 more tacos, So we got to be very cognizant of what it is we can do so we can drive down the cost of what the business does out in the field. So just have a very good cognizant aspect of all aspects of the business, and also understand how to market the product that you want to deliver to the business. We're a large organization with 80,000 restaurants. How do we convince all these restaurants to use Yammer or Office 365 or whatever it is? So that's what I mean. Take your IT hat off and look at the business side of it. And so that's kind of what we look for in hiring too, is more of a social construct type of people.
So are you bringing in, and this question goes for all of you, when you try to instill that within your staff, do you bring in marketing into the organization? Whether you bring somebody from marketing into to work within your organization, or just help do training or help do marketing. How are you incorporating other businesses into the stuff that you do day to day? So
we partner closely with the marketing team and also the communications team. So we will take their guidance on how to best communicate out to the market. I mean, we're IT people. We don't necessarily know, but we need to understand how to bring them in and when to bring them in, because they're professionals. I mean, I wouldn't know how to properly communicate out to the world, but knowing to bring them in at the right time is the right idea. So we haven't instilled marketing people in our group or communications people, but what we do is we partner and we leverage them, and we probably meet with each group at least every 2 weeks on everything that we're doing, make sure the planning's coming out, when's the communication going to roll out, what's the feedback from the communication, what's the customer loop back on that. And then I do have the service desk, so what I'm able to do on the service desk is get the customer feedback from the service desk and bring that back up to communication and marketing and say, all right, here's what we perceived, and here's the feedback that we're getting. So it's a nice little cycle that we have going on there.
How about you, John? Do you have experience with that at Boeing? I know Boeing's going through a digital transformation. How would you say your relationship is with the business, and how might that be changing?
Yeah, so in Boeing, we have large business units. We have our commercial airplane division. We have our defense and space division. We have some other smaller divisions. And so what we have is what we call IT business partners, and they act as a liaison between the business and IT. And so we'll work, those folks are their job is to know what the business requirements are, collect those, bring them back to us. They also work the opposite way, whereas we can use them as a form to communicate through them. But that doesn't mean that we don't need to get out and visit the business and be aware of what's going on. Our VP is constantly after us to go out and walk the factory, basically, get to know what your business needs are. And of course, in our environment, a lot of our tools are used in the office environment. And so we're also walking the office, encouraged to do that. Meet with people, find out how their tools are being used and what you can do to improve upon them. And in some cases, they're ahead of us, which is not where we want to be. We have people coming to us and saying, hey, we need these collaboration tools. They're trying to sneak them into the company. And that's not always the best way to have it work, because one of the goals we want to do is have standard offerings. But what we're finding is that we're actually, in an effort to move quickly, we're actually deploying multiple tools that in some cases do have overlap. But we want to get that out to the business to assist them in moving quicker, because that's one of the driving changes of our CEO is we have to, as a company, move quicker. Boeing's been known to be big, but they haven't been known to be fast. And we're trying to make it so that we are big and fast. And to do that, we've got to have these collaboration tools.
Okay. I wanted to take a minute to jump to a question from the audience. And it's about getting back to the very specific skills question. You know, one of the things we hear a lot about these days is the use of communications communications as software. So the use of communications APIs. What does that mean from a traditional telephony skills perspective? How are you guys sort of building up your organizations, if you are, to deal with the sort of communications movement that the software movement that we're going in?
I mean, for us,
that's a big one.
Yeah, for us, it's bringing in a lot of interns directly from college that understand a lot of this, and they're eager to jump right in. It's like, oh, here's kind of our legacy platform. Here's the people who have been doing this for so long, and I'm telling you, they've come in, and we just say, go off and start figuring out how to build business analytics using. For example, we use Power BI, but using Power BI to analyze everything that's going on in this aspect of the business. How can then we leverage some APIs that connect into here, connect into there, and they just come in and they just knock it out of the park. And then the people that have been here a long time, they're seeing this and they're realizing, this really isn't all that complicated. I get it. It helps bridge that gap of, oh, I can't do it, to, oh, wow. And then we hire the interns. And then they steal the interns from me after that. But I think that's the way we're trying to keep up with this new technology, because I think we have, when you get into this, middle essence of your career, sometimes you get a little bit stuck on how you do things, and sometimes you need that spark. And that spark for us has been this, we invest heavily in interns. We'll have 15 to 20 interns in our organization at any given time, and we'll just pop them in and just say, go do this, show us how to do this, and then what comes out of that is great. There's a lot of just spark from everybody that's coming out of that. So that's how we get into touching these newer technologies or these newer ideas out there, is giving somebody the freedom that has no accountability other than just playing with this tool and bringing it back and showing us how we can do it better. And I think that's the best way to do it in our organization.
Yeah, we're doing something very similar. We have interns that come in as well. I have one right now in my organization. He's not doing voice support, but we have one in our messaging area. And it does give them an opportunity to come in, spend the summer at Boeing, experience it. Our experience is that they've really enjoyed it. We have a pretty good success rate as far as hiring them afterwards. But like Chris said, we don't want to give them some boring assignment that we don't want to do until we pass it off to some newbie. We want to give them a challenging assignment that'll make them excited and want them to come back. And so, but it's a challenge, and like Chris said, you do have a tendency to oftentimes lose people. Where we're located in Seattle area, we have Microsoft, Amazon, Costco, all these companies that are all competing for the same talent. And I'm sure it's that way in many areas, but it's just become a real challenging environment. So you have to do something to sell your company to get those people to want to stay.
What about AI? Does that offer an opportunity, a skills opportunity within your organizations as well? Too early for that, or something that you're thinking
we're not
about?
Quite there yet.
For Yum, no, but for the brands, for like Pizza Hut and Taco Bell and KFC, they are experimenting with that quite a bit. So I don't know the full details of it, but I think with the partnership with Grubhub and stuff like that we're doing right now, that's going to tie a lot into it. How we have people go into the drive-throughs and being able to understand or predict on that. I think from that aspect of it, the brands are really focusing more on that, where we're focusing more on the commodity IT, and AI really doesn't quite hit there yet for us. But I could see it coming as people, that's why we need to bring the interns in. We got some PhD students that are focusing on that, trying to show us why we need to use this. So hopefully something will come out of that.
Yeah, one area I'd love to see our vendors improve AI is in the conference or the video conferencing rooms. We go in there today and people go in and they'll start fidgeting with buttons and things. The next thing you know, it's broken. And if they could just walk into a conference room and say, join conference X, and everything, boom, works. Or have support when they need it through some kind of artificial intelligence, that would be wonderful, because that's a real problem we have is the video technology is actually pretty stable, but it's the users that tend to break it oftentimes.
Yeah,
Stacy, you might have something to say about that.
So we'll start to lay the groundwork for that. We're not quite there yet, and we're taking it. We're back to basics right now, making sure we have a good infrastructure in place to do some of the things that we need to do. But jumping back to the previous question, I would say it doesn't have to only be an intern that you're kind of working with to get fresh and new ideas. I say get them before they start to drink the Kool-Aid. And what I mean by that is, if they're relatively new to the organization, or even if they transferred in, get all of that feedback from them. Listen to them. They'll probably be asking a lot of questions. Find out where they came from, what they were doing, within their other organization. Maybe they have a better way to do things. But try to get their feedback before they start drinking the Kool-Aid that the rest of us, are drinking. So you can hear, okay, what do you think is working well right now? What do you not think is working well? We're big on texting, IM, instant messaging capability. Really looking heavily into deploying more mobile applications, just to make it a little more, device friendly, work from anywhere, any place, anytime, type of approach. But yeah, just keep getting that feedback in. Although I love interns too. More interns, please.
So I'm kind of curious, what would you, if you, John, you talked about, you don't want the intern to give the interns the sort of boring jobs, but somebody has to do those boring jobs. How do you, or those routine jobs? I mean, how do you keep, your staff members that have to do that interested and intrigued in their jobs, and not feel sort of put out that you're giving the exciting stuff to somebody else?
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting conversation I just had the other day with a colleague. Was we were talking about doing some requirements gathering, and he was making the point, okay, we don't just necessarily pass it off to what we call the lower level employees, but we expect everybody to know the requirements of the business or the customer. And so every job has, I'll say, a little dirty work involved. And it's not necessarily, it depends upon, what you would like to do. And some people love to work with the customer and gather their requirements and find out what the business needs and so on. But really, it's some people. You find out first off who likes to do these types of work, and you send it to them. But in some cases, everybody has to do a little bit of that, and that's all right.
Or it could be a specific skill set that maybe your team just doesn't have full time, but for the length of time they're there, they could really help you out. Like technical writing, we usually have a lot of need to have technical writing assistants, and that could be an intern could come in and just knock that out.
So I'm curious, what's your sort of best advice if somebody's stuck in their career, they're not quite sure where to go next? What do you tell them? What do you share with them?
Don't be afraid to leave. Seriously, I know that it can be hard. Change is hard. Use your contacts, connect. I use LinkedIn a lot. I don't connect anyone on LinkedIn that I have not worked with or do not know, so I'm pretty picky about who I put on my LinkedIn. So if someone's in my LinkedIn, I've worked with them. And that gives you a lot of contacts who you can kind of reach out to if you are looking to make a change. Go to conferences like this and go to the networking events, talk with people, get to know people, get into the social networking side of it a little bit. Join some of the clubs, the after work activities, go to some of the happy hours if you don't mind going to the happy hours and just kind of talk and communicate. But don't sell yourself short either, because I know a lot of people have challenges kind of tooting their own horn. But if you really take a hard look at your resume, adding some of the skills that you may not be kind of focused on in your resume, that could help you at least kind of get you in the door for an interview. But don't be afraid to make a change. I've made a couple where I've ended up with a promotion. Like if I feel like I'm stuck somewhere, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to move on, but within my current org, it's just not going to happen for one reason or the other. You can make that change and say, you know what, I'm going to promote myself. Literally, like give myself a promotion, and you go out and you don't give up and you keep driving until you get that. So that would be my best advice. Just don't give up and don't be afraid to make a change.
Either of you guys?
Yeah, I would just say don't be afraid to ask. I think a lot of people, within my organization, I try to be open and transparent with the organization. But my career, it's always been seeing an opportunity and not being afraid to ask leadership, hey, I'd like to take this on. I think a lot of times people get passed over because they're just not afraid to step up to the game. And some of our best people within our organization have always stepped up and asked, you know, and I always try to prod and encourage, hey, what would you like to do next? What do you want to do? Just don't be afraid to say, hey, I'd like to try this next. I'd like to go into networking. I'd like to go into security. Just ask, you know, and most leaders that are good will help you get there, you know, because it helps the organization out. And then also, you know, if you can't find a path out, you know, not be afraid to change jobs too is also good.
I was just talking to one of our recruiters, and she said if you're a mid-career employee, one of the interesting things she mentioned to me is, you know, they're not out looking for what degree you have, whether you have, you know, the advanced degree, this or that. They're looking at your skill set. So don't be afraid to go out there and you know, just focus on certain skills. Don't worry about getting a degree. Get that skill, and that'll be a great marketing asset to you.
And I think that is actually a great place to wrap up. So if everybody can join me in a nice round of applause for these folks, really appreciate it.